That was a weird like playback thing that happened there. Did you see me right before I sneezed like 6 seconds before the video, before the video ended?
No,
Hey everybody.
I missed that. Well, good
we're a hot
afternoon,
mess.
good morning, good evening. Welcome to the hot mess that is 365 Deep Dive here in May of 2026.
Yeah, got summer
Off to
vibes. It feels like things are a little bit more loose. It's my kids. This is their first week off of school, so it has been chaotic to say the least. Trying to figure out, how to work with kids in the house at the same time. My kids are at the age where it's like they think that when I'm in a meeting, that's when I'm working. So they poke their head in. If I'm on a call, they'll like leave me alone. But if I'm not in a meeting and I'm just like trying to get something done, like actual work, that's when they're like, can we go to the pool? Can we do this? Can we do that? Because they don't understand that, like, no, I have to work in between the meetings too, dude. So it's been a struggle, but no, it's been nice, having them home, and it's been really nice weather all week in Kansas City. So that's good. And at EY, we're gearing up to start rolling out Claude. So we're turning that functionality on early next week for at least myself, and us in the US, and then rolling out over other countries. So that's exciting. It feels like, a lot of milestones are going to get hit this summer with our own rollout internally. So that's going to be pretty cool. But how are things in your neck of the woods over there in Carolinas?
Never a dull moment. My kids are still in school for another week and a half or so.
Oh, wow.
And then we're doing the summer camp rotation. Looking really forward to that. They're excited about the upcoming summer break. I think they're excited to do some things that are a little bit different. It's getting a little warmer. It's been mid and upper 80s pretty much throughout the week. So we spent some time at the pool, which has been nice. And hopefully some more of that coming up. And then on the work front, just continues all things Copilot. It continues to grow, and as we get new stuff from Microsoft, new things to explore and learn and dive into, while keeping my eye on all of the other AI tools that are out there. I know yesterday Anthropic released Opus 4.8.
Mm-hmm.
I heard rumors this morning through social media that GPT 5.6 is starting to show up in like Codex.
Oh boy.
So there's some new models coming from there. I did see an announcement from Microsoft today that the latest Opus models are starting to show up already in Excel, which is pretty cool.
It's already in Cowork. Check that out.
Wow.
It's already there in Cowork.
Wow. I haven't even had a chance to touch it yet. It just came out like yesterday. So that's exciting. There's so much going on. It's making my head spin, and this is my job. I also do this as a hobby on the side, and I'm having a hard time keeping up. I know we got some friends from around the world chiming in. How are you keeping up with all of this? How's your journey going with all of the advancements in AI, which seems like it couldn't get any faster, yet it's getting faster? Let us know,
man. We got Build next week too. Like Microsoft Build is happening. WWDC, isn't that next week too? Or is that in 2 weeks maybe? So we're going to hear about like what Apple's doing. We just heard about Google, and they had Google like 2 weeks ago, maybe, or a week ago. And we heard about that side of stuff. Like, I'm in the same spot. If anybody's got any like tips and tricks for how they stay up to date on things, I'm all ears. Cause, I found, we were talking internally a little bit about like, productivity and like kind of like time planning with Copilot. And I was like, I've noticed something weird over the past month or two since I've got access to Cowork. Actually, I don't know if it's the same with you, but I find that I'm doing so much more now. Like I'm legitimately way more productive. But the problem is I'm kind of like kicking off tasks in Cowork, or I'm having like Copilot go do some research or something like that for me. And then because I'm having all of these things kind of go forward at the same pace, when I get back to it to review it, I'm like losing context, So I'm kind of I'm struggling with like, what was I doing again? Or where is that file? Something like that. Cause like I'm actually getting things done like way earlier too. So like maybe I need to make a slide deck for something, but I get done with it like 2 weeks before I'm supposed to present it. And now I'm like, where's that slide deck at again?
Yes.
I had cowork help me with it. It's buried in a task somewhere. And like I'm finding this weird thing where it's like it's a first world problem where it's like I'm getting too much done now and I can't keep track of all the deliverables,
Yeah,
So
I can sympathize with that. Like keeping track of the deliverables is hard, especially in the Microsoft Copilot world, because sometimes the chat names are kind of derived based off of the first thing that you ask it, and not necessarily off of like the topic of the conversation. And so the chat names are a little ambiguous, and I found that the search isn't that great. It's almost like Copilot search is not enabled through the chat and the corresponding conversation, that it's really just kind of honing in on like the name. I could be wrong. If there's a colleague from Microsoft wants to shine some light on that, we would love to know more about that. But my work gets buried in the chats and conversations, and so I'm spending too much time going back through that to try and find things. And then on the other side of that, I'm doing what you're doing. I'm multitasking. I set a chat to do this and I pivot to this other thing while it's processing and it's working. And then I have to almost fragment my attention and remember, okay, I got this thing running over here and I got these 3 things running over here. And I kind of keep that going. So it's mentally taxing. And then the last big piece for me and the hard thing is to figure out how to operationalize this, put it in standard operating procedures so that I know what the entry point is and I know what the steps are and what the outcome's going to be, and so that I can purposely engage with it and minimize some of that fragmentation. And that's been the biggest challenge that I've been working on for the past couple of months, is figuring out how to truly operationalize it in a way that doesn't fragment my attention and take away all those productivity gains that hopefully I'm getting out of the use of the tooling.
Yeah. I wonder if I should like maybe leverage having like cowork email me the results or something like that more often, so that I can kind of use that as my, inbox, for lack of a better word, or something like that. One thing that's been helping me is Planner, and using the Planner agent that's in Frontier. It's coming out of Frontier soon. But one of those things with me has been putting Planner and having the Planner agent add the context of what the heck is going on. Because like I'll promise to do something in a chat or an email or a random meeting, and then I'll forget about it. So I have the agent like go find those things and add them to my personal plan. And then I told it, hey, put like a two sentence context paragraph in the body. That way, when I go to that task, I can like, okay, who is this for? What's this thing for? That's kind of been, it's been helping me a little bit, but it feels like I'm just kind of like barely avoiding catastrophe all the time, So it's like, I need it to be a little bit more solid and have like what you mentioned, like operationalize, or like a system where I know that like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I make some kind of a project out of it or something, so I can start attaching things to that project, but it's a whole thing. And that gets into project management, which is not what we're talking about today. But what we thought for our topic today was just in general, Copilot has become so much more than just that chat. And, it's kind of evidenced by us complaining, right, about like our own struggles. Yeah. Our own struggles with like keeping everything straight. Like, how do you keep straight even all of the interfaces that we've got now to work with Copilot? So we thought we would go through today kind of our own personal, when do we choose which tool between chat and storing a prompt in prompt gallery versus running it as a scheduled task versus when do I jump all the way to cowork, or do I make an agent for this thing? The one thing I struggle with is, do I store this in a page or do I store this in a notebook? We wanted to kind of go through from like the simplest to maybe the most like forward facing and complex, kind of go in order and talk about that today. I see Mark Wayne, he's got a good suggestion here about like, he has a scheduled prompt to check every day for the Copilot changes, and then like what's going to happen, and send them an email. That's a really good idea. Like almost like a daily brief, but like what is happening in the world, not what is happening. The daily brief in Cowork is like what's happening in my email and my chats, right? I kind of want to know like what's the industry doing, you know? I need a news briefing about like OpenClaw and Anthropic and Copilot and everything else, you know?
Yeah.
So,
so this was actually really timely. This is a conversation that I've seen a lot of people having, I don't want to say struggling with, but just thinking about out loud, what to use when. But also, the other side of that conversation I've seen is not everyone's aware of the tools that are available and how much just the Microsoft Copilot has actually expanded and what tools are available. And so we really wanted to dive into that. And I've been doing a lot of that on my LinkedIn channel or my LinkedIn through my daily tips and tricks. In fact, the last like 20 tips and tricks have really been all around this topic. And that's what we want to touch base on today. Do you want to bring my screen up and we can kind of give it an overview and then?
Well, I'll admit I cheated a little bit today. And what I did is you were like, hey, we should like kind of cover this, like what to use when. I took your last about 15 to 20 tips and I fed them into Cowork and I created this artifact that I think will kind of ground us for our chat today about what to use when, and like if you've got this, use that. If you've got this thing you're working on, use a page. So I think that kind of like might be our map for the day. But yeah, I want to jump to your screen and see what you've got listed there. You kind of made a nice decision tree that we were working back and forth about like, hey, what do you think about this? And you were kind of working with Cowork, or no, you were working with ChatGPT, right? To kind of work on the colors and getting the theme just right.
My daily tips and tricks, I like to apply a visual to it. And so like when I create a tip, I also have a prompt to like suggest like an image. And when I got to this particular series, it suggested doing kind of a decision tree based off of the different topics. And I was like, that's a really cool idea. The first pass of it though was very bland. It had the branching, but I didn't like the branding at all. So I gave it the Copilot logo with our spin on it, the little question mark over it. And then I'm like, let's take those colors and derive those into like the different branches. Iterated through it a couple of times, and this is what it landed on. And I was really happy with that. And then the latest image generating capabilities, especially with ChatGPT, you can get very consistent images. You can create like a conversation and you can step through a bunch of images. And this one came together really well. This is after I did the whole run. This is kind of one of the last images that was created as part of that. I really liked it because I love the way that it brings everything into perspective and it gives you that decision tree. And this one's on my LinkedIn. I think this was like tip number, let's see, I'm on like 147 today. I think this is like 130, something like that. I'll double check on that now in a bit. I'll take that as an action item, but you can get this on my LinkedIn. It's AI generated, but I think it tells the story. And this is what we wanted to step through. So John and I were thinking, let's take a leisurely stroll through these branches. Let's talk about some of the tools that are there. Let's show them. You guys ask some questions in the chat because we're not afraid to demo live without a safety net and go down each of these branches and push the buttons and flip the switches. But we're going to step through all of this and just give high level what it's capable of, what you can use it for, some practical tips and tricks that we have learned and the things that like we apply, and really even just bounce ideas off of one another. We love to learn out loud, and that's really what this is all about.
Yeah. So starting in with chat, it's interesting. Chat changed yesterday. That was kind of the hot news across like LinkedIn and all the different endpoints that there's a new UI design. And we were chatting back and forth. We were texting like, whoa, we got the new update. Like it's all different now. So I think it's good for us to dive into chat first. That's along that ephemeral side. So I think what's interesting, you've got these kind of categories, in this upper level where it's like, is it ephemeral? Am I looking for an answer versus am I looking to like get something done, right? Do I have like a goal that I want to kind of point Copilot towards? Is it just a one-off chat where I need some advice or I have a question, I need an answer, and then I move on with my day? Chat being that bucket, that one's pretty easy in my opinion, because it's like, you just fire up a chat and you can chat with it like we've been doing for 3 years now. So flipping over to chat, I don't know if you want to show chat or if you want me to bring it up on my screen. We've got the new interface, and Microsoft moved our cheese a little bit here. So yeah, yesterday they announced like the simplification of things, and basically the big takeaway is what Andy's highlighted at the top. Where's the work web tab? Where did it go? And for a lot of us in IT, we used that as the indicator to tell people you've got a license or you need to go get your license, right? At IDY especially, it's more of like a user-driven thing. So people are going and requesting a license, they're taking training, and then they're getting their license. So we would, promote the heck out of this, like, hey, everybody go to this area. If you don't see work web, click this link and go request your license. Now we're going to have to show people a different way. And it looks to be that they've landed on that work IQ area that you had drawn an arrow to. It seems a little bit in flux right now. There was another indicator right down next to your name at the bottom. It would say basic or premium. I've lost that label as well. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but we were thinking that would be a fallback. However, it does look pretty safe to say, if you've got work IQ in the top, that means you've got a full M365 Copilot license. I checked our Joan end user, which is our unlicensed test user, and she does not have work IQ. That is blanked out. So that seems to be the indicator now of whether or not you have a license to begin with. And I do like how it's like work IQ means like I'm working with my work data or I'm not. If you click on that, it crosses it out. And I kind of like that UI of being like, no work. Like it literally just crosses it out. I think that's kind of cool because the work and web thing of the days of old, people thought if I was in the work tab, I wouldn't get web results. Or if I was in the web tab, that was how I got web results. It confused people. So now we're going to have a different confusion, in my opinion, of like, what the heck is work IQ? And we might want to explain that a little bit. But like having like work is on, work is off, I think that's a little bit better of a UI, even if I struggle with the marketing title still. But
my
I know
suggestion to Microsoft would be, because it's work IQ, we understand that because we've been briefed and we've seen the message center posts and whatever, but to the average end user, they don't understand what that means. And so we're gonna have to educate them. My advice to Microsoft would be and I'm gonna have to go out of the full screen to show you this, but my advice would be take this logo and put it on the page somewhere for those of us that have the full Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Put this on there somewhere so that I can clearly see, yes, I do have the license. This is the indicator, M365 Copilot, and just give me that clear indicator. I love the gradient. I think it's great. I don't know what it represents, but I love the gradient logo. This is what you put in some of the other apps and services. Put this on the page somewhere. Just tell us that. And we can train people on this part, but just give us the logo if we get the full license. Use the other logo if we don't. I
think it'd be nice if it had like just a little like info bubble next to work IQ. If you mouse over it, they would tell you what the heck that is, and have it say like, hey, we are bringing in your graph data, like WorkIQ is not just a rename of Microsoft Graph. And that was kind of what the joke was a lot, where it's like, oh, they just renamed it. Really what it is it's 3 parts that make up WorkIQ. You got the graph, you've got the memory that Copilot has about your interactions and your preferences, and then you've got the inference that the large language model provides. That together is the WorkIQ. But I think it'd be nice if, like, in plain user terms, if they would kind of roll over it and it would say, hey, when this is on, we're getting your email, your Teams chats, your files, etc. And then you cross it out and it says, like, we're not using your emails, your Teams chats, your files. I think that would be kind of nice if they would just do like a little one-liner explanation of what WorkIQ is. But it's they're trying to make fetch happen, right? It's the brand name. So
there's a lot of other updates on this page, and we're going to go through them, high level real quick. But the other big one that I want to point out, and I'm actually really happy about this, is our friend the waffle is back. The waffle icon is back. You can get back to your apps and more. And what I've seen over the past couple of weeks, there's a coaching bubble that pops up and announces, hey, we're back. And I love that. Thank you for bringing back the waffle. They did move notebooks underneath the waffle as well as Create, but the other Microsoft apps and services are now back in the waffle. They're they're in the same area that they've been before. I think that's great, and it matches up with some of the other Microsoft apps and services.
I'm glad to see that for sure. Now, whenever you minimize this sidebar here, so like if you go over the Copilot logo, it will change to a minimize. Click on that, and you will notice that it will collapse this, and the waffle does go away. So if you're on a smaller screen and you don't see the labels, you're going to click that top button, and that's going to like expand it out. Then you'll see the waffle, and you'll see the names of your apps and stuff like that. That kind of threw me for a loop a little bit, but some of that stuff like Create and Notebooks, those are kind of up under the waffle now, which I think makes sense because those are more applications. They're not agents. They're not like features. So I kind of like that. I've always thought of Create as an app experience in my mind because it's a pretty full-featured, like full-screen experience. Your agents, this is interesting. If you go down and you mouse over agents, now that is a flyout. So if you mouse over it, it will actually fly all your agents out along the side. And that is different than the pinned area. So whenever you pin an agent, it will add it to the left-hand menu for you now. And I really wish that they would let me unpin some of these things because like I kind of want to get rid of analyst, but like keep researcher. For some reason, those two are pinned there all the time. But you pin your agents, they'll show up kind of above the fold. The rest of your agents, mouse over, you'll see that fly out. You can collapse all of this. So you can collapse your pinned stuff. You can also collapse your chats. That's really handy for like when I'm doing a demo, I'll shrink that chats down and then that way people don't see my chats. That's a demo thing. And then at the bottom, that's unchanged. You got your name, you click on it, that's your profile. You can sign into other accounts. Click next to it, that's your settings for the M365 web experience, all up. So that's kind of the nav bar. Moving to the middle, this has changed a little bit too, which is the plus button. It used to say like add work context. They call it technically context IQ. You click the plus button. Now you've got what we've had before, which is I can add work content, I can upload something, or I can go browse my OneDrive. But down at the bottom, you have capabilities. And I kind of like this because it feels a little chat GPT-ish to me, which is like, I want to turn on research, or I want to turn on a capability. So if you're like, I want to make a PowerPoint, click create a presentation, and it just puts a little pill right there. And now you're not having to go find the agent called PowerPoint and navigate there and put it in. You just, I want to make a PowerPoint, and it's going to make a PowerPoint because you turned on that capability. So I do like that quite a bit. And then the agents, that's an at mention like it always has been. You can always at mention an agent any time in your conversation to kind of bring it into the chat.
No, I'm going to jump in here.
Box. Yeah, you want to talk about that area?
All right. First off, constructive feedback. This is confusing because this is what we see, a version of what we see when we go and we add work content, people, files, meeting, emails, chats, and more. And so it's sitting there, files, emails, people, but when you click on it, it opens up a version of prompt gallery. It's a simplified version of prompt gallery from before. And that is confusing. I've seen it, I've explored it, I've played with it. And I can tell you end users are already having questions, those that are seeing it, because they're like, well, where are my emails? Just give us an indication that this is prompt gallery or some suggested prompts.
Did you see that they renamed it though?
Have they?
So click the dot
I
dot
haven't been able to
dots.
keep up with marketing this week.
Go click the dot dot dots next to it. This will open up the entire prompt gallery. It's called Prompt Lab now. We have come back to Copilot Lab. So it's been renamed and it's got a little bit different organization now. Your topics, like the categories, those are now kind of folded up into a folder basically. And then also your agent one. So if you've got like those starter prompts for agents, those will also be available in Prompt Lab now formerly known as Prompt Gallery.
That's an interesting addition, being able to go directly into starter prompts associated with agents. That provides a little bit more value for creating those for the agent workload. So that one's actually really interesting. I'll tell you, the thing that jumped out at me though, the first time I saw this was, they renamed it Prompt Lab. But the second thing that really jumps out at me is this guy right here. The ability to search now. Search your prompts. I think that one's been like a big one.
So many saved prompts, especially from Microsoft themselves. It's like 200 or 300 now.
Yeah. So I like that feature. And then we still have the ability to go in and save some of these and bookmark them. We still have the ability to go in, share, copy, or even just go and try it with Copilot right from here.
Yeah, which is the same as clicking the whole text. But so that's renamed. And then moving forward, you got the message Copilot. That's as before. You got the there's a little bit more separation now between the microphone and the voice mode. I saw on Reddit actually this morning, people were complaining about that or saying like, hey, I don't feel like this is like very intuitive, that like you've got a microphone and then what the heck is this line thing that's supposed to mean voice chat. But you do now have like, if you mouse over it, it animates a little bit and kind of shows audio. And there's a tool tip that if you bounce over, it says voice chat. You mouse over the other one, it says dictate. So that's really nice.
I like the animation there. I think that's a really clever addition.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. Up at the top corner, you've got the shield that we've had before, which means that your data is protected. If you got the green shield, you know you're good to go. Temporary chats, that's the dotted line area. That's kind of been a universal icon now. It's the same kind of looking when you're in ChatGPT and Claude. I've noticed that it's like a dotted kind of, ephemeral chat. And then under the dot dot dots, you've got your settings and all the stuff that you've had before as well. And I haven't seen any changes to scheduled prompts or chat settings with this update. They still look like they're the same to me. Although we do have sources, but that's a Frontier thing. So if you're in Frontier, you would have this new sources area where you can turn on things like Notion and the London Stock Exchange and stuff like that. So those are kind of interesting. Yeah, there we go. And that's a personal sources thing. So like I've connected my Notion to this. So like Andy doesn't see that that's configured. That's under my account, And then auto, that's actually moved to the other side now. So they're your model switchers right next to Context IQ. Still have, your quick response, your Think Deeper, your Opus, or your GPT models. And Opus, it doesn't tell us what version it is. It's a little bit weird still in the Microsoft world where it's got like, hey, in Excel, we'll tell you that you can choose Opus 4.6, Opus 4.7. In Cowork, you can choose, Opus 4.8 or Sonnet 4.6. In chat, it's just Opus. I don't know why they're like choosing to put numbers in certain places and not in others, but we still kind of haven't really gotten to that consistency. But at least now you know that the model switcher has moved to the other side. So don't have that throw you. So what we were talking about before we did the world tour of chat is this is where you kind of ground yourself with like an everyday, just normal, ephemeral type of a chat. I have found, Andy, that I use the microphone as much as humanly possible. I try to dictate now. I've seen a lot of YouTubers. I've been very influenced by YouTubers, watching them use things like whisper flow and stuff like that, where they fire that up and then they just kind of talk. And I'm like, I like that because I'm not going to edit myself as I'm typing, and it's just faster to get it out of my brain. So when I have an ephemeral chat, I don't really go all the way to voice mode. I thought that I was going to, but once we got it, it's kind of an underused feature for me. But I use the heck out of start dictation to just be like, hey, I've got the question about this, or, should I do this or do that? If I got just a normal chat, I'll fire up the microphone and do it that way. I'm curious if you've got a rhyme or reason between typing, talking, or having a full two-way conversation. What do you typically do?
If I am in demo, I like to use the dictation feature. I want to talk to it so I can engage the crowd, engage the audience on the other side. So I try to lean into the dictation feature. However, I find that it doesn't always work the first time I click on it. Sometimes I have to refresh the page and then it'll kick in. Just a browser nuance that I run into every now and then. So try to remember to engage it before I start with presentation, and then it's usually good to go. But this one usually gets a big wow factor in demos when you show people that you can talk to it.
Yeah.
In day-to-day, because of the type of prompting that I do, I tend to type more than I talk, because I'm thinking about goal, context, source, expectation, and role. I'm making sure that I'm providing enough parameters to get the output that I want, and really thinking through that particular prompt. And so sometimes I'll pause while I'm typing so that I can think about like what's the next part, what's the next word that I need for this. And it's harder for me to do that when I'm talking out loud. I have no problem talking out loud, but sometimes it's easier for me to get my thoughts in order typing. But I've seen a pro tip on this: dictate, get 80% of it out there, and then go back and add to it and type and pick it up, so you can get it out much faster.
Yeah, I would like to see, I hope sometime, some rich formatting kind of comes to this text box. I've gotten spoiled by Cowork, where you can make things bold and underlined, and you can do bullets and numbered lists and stuff. I hope that kind of comes to this experience, because like you, if I'm doing a structured prompt and I really want like headers and lists and stuff like that, I wish that I had those tools available to me. But this is where you're going to do like a regular normal chat. Anything that you put in this chat is going to end up in your chat history, which is along the side. And depending on your organization, they may or may not have these chats expire. Like in my organization, most of the world has a 30-day chat retention. So we have also chosen to have a 30-day Copilot rollover. So these disappear for us. Your organization might not, or they might have set it to even earlier. If you want to have a truly ephemeral chat that like doesn't show up over here, you would click that the dotted chat bubble, and you'd be able to show that, so that you could like say something and have it just go away whenever you close the window. On the flip side of that, if you've got a prompt that you really love, that would be where you want to be able to start reusing it. So that goes to that second bubble that you've got there, Andy, on your graphic, which is reuse. The first level of reuse is prompt gallery, and he's going to have to update this to prompt lab. But that was where you would save your favorite prompt. And I'm curious, Andy, do you use the prompt lab very much these days? Do you have like a few quick fire prompts that you save that you go back to?
I do.
I find that I kind of don't, honestly.
No, one of the ones that I use quite frequently, and I demo on this one all the time because it's a really high value prompt for me, is actually this one. It's a daily recap prompt that I like to run. And I've got even newer iterations of it in my work environment. This is the demo version of it. But I run this one regularly. It's the whole point of it is give me just a couple of accomplishments. And I haven't given a lot of criteria. I'm really letting Copilot return what it thinks is an accomplishment for that day. Sometimes it misses the target. Sometimes it's spot on. The next thing is my comms. I want emails and chats organized by priority. And then I want to highlight any tasks that have been assigned to me. Give me my top 10 emails. There's certain things that I want to ignore. Chats, give me my top 10 chats listed by priority. Also identify, was it a group chat? Was it direct, or like a one-on-one, or was it a meeting chat? But then I'm also giving it an out. If there are not enough chats to fill the criteria, don't give me fluff. Just give me a few. Then I want my meetings. Meetings can be a little tricky, especially when I'm like double booked. So I want to get some information around my meetings. Did I participate? Was I organizer, presenter, attendee? And then from there, I just want to know some meeting notes, a few sentences on the key topics and the action items for that particular day. I've been experimenting with backlinking. I wanted to see if I could do backlinking like we can do in tools like OneNote or Obsidian, and link notes together and kind of create a knowledge base out of it. So I've been experimenting with that. I've also been experimenting with tagging, letting the AI do tagging based off of the topics that were for that day to enhance the searching capability of these particular notes. And then the last thing, what are some action items for tomorrow? And we're going to show a couple of different versions of this. I'm going to go ahead and run this in our environment, but I do want to point out as I'm doing this, I still have the ability to add managed sources to it. So things like work content, but because I have Work IQ on, it's already going to reason over my emails and my meetings and my files and the people that I communicate. But you also now, when you're editing this.
Yeah, click it back into the text there. It went away.
Yeah, I was getting ready to showcase. There it goes.
Dude, look at that. Like, I just was like, hey, it'd be nice to have some text formatting. I guess I haven't run enough Copilot in the past 12 hours. Because, look at that.
Yep.
Oh, hallelujah. Thank you, Microsoft.
You can do proper formatting. You can do some bulleted lists, some numbered lists. But that started to show up.
That's brand new.
I saw that in Cowork a couple weeks ago. And I'm like,
I use it like crazy.
And the light bulb started going off. Yep. So I'm going to highlight a couple things here just real quick. Let me just append this and update it real quick.
And I don't know if this helps the LLM, but it definitely helps my human eyes with tracking and seeing like, do I have everything I want? And a shout out to Amy Diamond in the chat. He mentioned that he's done a tour of, so if you like are joining late or you missed our tour, you want to go back to it, look up SharePoint Wizard. He launched a video, I think it was like 14 hours ago or something. Yeah. There was this kind of a tour that's a little bit more concise than what we did. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that, dude. So okay, so you send this off. Yeah, there's a new little thinking animation too. I've noticed that in Cowork.
And there we go. So this is the output. We're going to let this run. It doesn't really matter what's in the body. We would go back and fact check that. But I think the next important thing, because we're talking about some of the reusable content, is once the prompt finishes, and there's an indicator in the lower right-hand corner that it's generating. Once it's finished, we can now go back, and the prompt that we ran, we can do things like we can go back and re-edit it. We can copy the prompt if we need to. We can schedule this prompt. We'll talk about in a minute. We can save this prompt to the prompt gallery, or we can copy a link to this prompt and maybe share it with someone else. I want to briefly just cover the schedule and the save option. So if we click on the schedule, this is the newest version of the Create a Schedule editor. We can expand this or minimize it and adjust the prompt itself. But the biggest thing is the updates now to the scheduling. We can schedule these for a year out with a cadence that meets our requirements daily, weekly, monthly. We can pick the day of the week that we want it to run on. We can pick the time that we want it to run, and we can tell it when it needs to end. And so I could schedule this out to run, every work day at like 4 p.m. It's going to run on these days, and I can schedule this out pretty far in advance.
Yeah,
It's going
I
to
did
limit
get
the number
some
of runs.
feedback on this. One of my users said that like they were a little bit like it's not quite as good as Outlook recurrence. They would like to. It would be nice if we could have like the fourth Friday of the month or the
Mhm.
first Tuesday of the month, something like
Right.
that, with a little bit more variance to it. Right now, you basically got day, week, and month that you can run it. I'm curious though, what if you hit that trash can next to the date? I've never tried doing that. Does that just make it run indefinitely?
From
Because
what
it
I
says
read,
repeat
it'll only
every
run
week.
1 year out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I was wondering, like, does that just make it run forever or something? Okay.
And I actually switched it over to day, and you see now it's like when I removed some days, it automatically switched back to week, which is an interesting nuance. I'm just
Yeah.
going to test this in our demo tenant. I'm just going to let this run every Friday, and I'm just going to, we'll see how far it
Yeah.
goes. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. This is available through the settings menu. So go to the ellipsis in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see it actually shows up underneath here. And then you can hover over it now and actually see the preview of the prompt. I think that's another big improvement. So I don't have to spend a whole lot of time drilling into it. But we do have the ability to schedule these now. So run it once, see what the output looks like, and then you can go and schedule it and make it reusable. But you can also make it reusable by saving it as a prompt. And so we can save it to the prompt gallery. You get 35 characters to title it. You can see the prompt down below. You can append this in some cases, but it's really limited. This window is really small. I wish it were bigger. It's a little hard to read inside of here, and you lose all the formatting with it. But you can at least append the title for the prompt, and you can save it.
It's nice that you can edit it now before you save it, because I did struggle with that. Like even as of like a week or two ago, where it's like I spelled one word wrong and I didn't want that misspelling in the prompt gallery, So you can tweak it now, which is nice.
Yeah. The only other thing that I noticed about this is like I ran the prompt. I started off with the prompt up here. I ran it from the prompt lab. I'm gonna have to get used to saying that. As I scroll down though, like I'm looking for prompt lab. I'm looking for like the ability to run like another one, and I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, I think
so
the sparkle is gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe that's something that will get re-added. But this is now a saved prompt, and I can get to it through I can get to it through the
Just
prompt
start
lab.
a new chat. Yeah.
So that begs the question, okay, where's the new chat button? Over here.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was that one in the upper right-hand corner near the shield. So we go to do new chat over here. Now we can get back into prompt lab. We can look for your saved prompts, and I can find that recap prompt that maybe I want to run. I think the other thing we want to showcase from this part is that this is personal for me. It's not a public gallery that's available for other members of my team or other colleagues out there. So that's where we can go into the more options. And now I can do things like share this with John, copy the link, post it into a chat, try it with Copilot, or delete. So we get that share mechanism. And this one's been updated as well, but it's the same functionality that we had before. So I'm going to share this prompt. Well, who do you want to share it with? I can share it with a Microsoft 365 group, or I can share it with like a Microsoft team right from here. Maybe I share this with my buddy Mark as part of our Broadcast Buccaneers team, and send it out to him, and then he would be able to use this as part of his experience inside of the prompt lab.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. So that takes us through, you got your one-off chat. You've got your chat that you want to save so you can reuse it. Then you've got your chat that you saved, or your chat that you want to run automatically over and over again. That's the scheduled prompts. The other thing that is reusable is the personalization in the chat. So another way that you can kind of enhance your chats is that component of Work IQ, which is remember things about me, understand my preferences and stuff like that as well. So if you go into the settings, yeah, the word I was looking for, the settings, go into your chat settings. Now you can kind of tune Copilot to work the way that you want it to. And I'm very careful in the way that I say these things. I don't want to say the word learn, because Copilot is not learning from you. That is an entirely different thing, right? You don't want to, you don't want it to you don't want to infer that it is learning, the LLM is learning from you. That's not what happens. All this stays in your own profile with Work IQ. It's technically part of your mailbox and your office profile. So these layers of personalization, instructions, memory lays on top of your own profile. But I use instructions more than I use memories. And see what he's got here is things like don't use a bunch of emojis, don't use M dashes, right? Those are kind of the two things that are like, whoa, this was AI written. So I put those in my instructions to don't use M dashes, don't use the other. Another one I added to mine is don't follow up with a question every time, because that's kind of annoying how it's like, oh, do you want me to do this? So I've added that. And they've got these helpful little pills now at the bottom that you can add the kind of common things that people are adding to their instruction set. But I don't know if you have any tips or tricks about this, Andy. I can show what mine looks like, because I've got another little blurb in mine that I wanted to share too.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind about the instructions is this is for all of your conversations moving forward. So be mindful of that. Don't tell it, always respond as a sing-song pirate voice, because that's what you're going to get out of it moving forward. So be intentional with the instructions. I added an instruction in one of my environments recently around conserving keystrokes and brevity and response. And that was for my outputs, but I wasn't very clear in that. And from that point on, every response that I got back used that output. It was very, very concise, very few words. It didn't overly explain. It almost under responded. And it took a little adjustment in the instructions to get it to just the level, the nuance that I want. It's not like there's a slider where you can, drag it across and say, this is the level of response that I want. So be intentional with your instructions and know that it's going to apply to every conversation moving forward. But if you find yourself prompting out things or prompting things over and over and over, go back and look at your prompts and say, you know what, I do this frequently. Maybe I'll make that into an instruction. And if you have questions on how to craft the instruction, ask Copilot, how can I make this an instruction that's going to help me with future conversations moving forward? And it'll give you some feedback, just like they're doing here.
Yeah. Sorry, I clicked too early.
No worries.
Amy also put in the chat a solution to our problem from earlier. The problem was, where the heck is the prompt gallery? Click on the ... help and tips, and there's the prompt gallery.
No, that's not buried at all.
Yeah, and it's also not the wrong name, right? But yeah, thanks, Amy. It's right there. So to show you my custom instructions, this is something I stole from my friend Amy Dolzine that I work with at EY, who's also a fellow MVP. She added this at the end. At the end of your response, tell me a grade of your confidence in your answer on a scale of 1 to 10. Also tell me how I can improve my prompt to make it better, right? So that way, if I kind of do, I don't know which one is safe here for maybe this one or last week's highlights. Let me click on that. That one. See, this one's researcher. I want one that's not researcher. Here we go. So this one, it didn't do it. So if I were to run this chat that's like, hey, what's on my radar, right? What emails do I need to worry about? At the end, mine has a little block that will say confidence score, and it'll say 8 out of 10, and it'll tell me how I could improve. So this is I'm always getting better at prompting or thinking about my prompting. So this is really pretty cool. This is, come on. Yeah, things are quiet in a good way because this is a test tenant. So let me finish it responding and I'll show you the bottom part. It's very verbose. Come on, there we go. So all of my stuff at work has this at the bottom of it, which is confidence, because it's in my custom instructions. So that was an 8 out of 10. It's strong on accuracy. It's lower because the data set is thin. And then how would you want to improve? Like put, not just email, but also chats and also meetings. Like you got some blind spots to worry about. Also this like only decisions and risks, don't show me the noise, show me the stuff I actually should care about. So it's giving me some tips about like, hey, the next time you run this, add this thing or add that thing. This has been a game changer for me. Not to add, too much hyperbole onto things, but stealing this from Amy was like a huge improvement in my Copilot experience, because now I know if I should check it a little bit more, because like, oh, it's only like a 6 out of 10. And it tells me how I can just keep getting better and better. So it kind of keeping it fresh in your mind is the best way, I think, to remember, oh, I need more context. Oh, I need a source, the GCSE stuff. So I wanted to share that. And I will put my stuff in the chat here for everybody. So mine is like, hey, I'm an enterprise architect. I'm also an MVP. Don't steal that part because you're not, at least, you're not an enterprise architect and an MVP unless you're like my buddy Simon. So why don't I take that? This is one that I stole from the New York Times Hard Fork podcast, which is talk to me informally like a wise and trusted friend. I like honest feedback. Don't be sycophantic. I'm not always right, but you're not always right. I like that, as well as the, don't end your response in a question and give me a grade. So let me drop that for you guys into the chat. And there we go. So that's kind of moving down the list. The other thing in personalization is memories. And you'll see that I don't have any memories in this tenant because it's a test tenant. But if you are pretty explicit in telling Copilot to remember something about you, like if you get a particularly good format back and you say, ooh, do this in the future, remember this, Copilot will detect that and you'll see a little tag that says memory updated. What that's doing is it's storing that little snippet into this saved memory area. And once you have memories here, you can choose to delete them. You can choose, if you go back a level, you can turn off the memories for a period of time, or you can delete individual memories and you can delete all of the memories, kind of like the Men in Black flashy thing, where it just wipes all of its memory. So you got 3 levels of control there. One thing that I've recommended to my users is to play 20 questions with Copilot. So start a session if you want to kind of pre-stage these memories. Go into Copilot and say, hey, Copilot, I want you to remember things about me and my preferences. So let's play 20 questions. Ask me a question one at a time so that you can remember them as individual memories. So I'll go ahead and run that. And the key here is ask me a question one at a time, because what I've done in the past is like I've played 20 questions. It asked me all 20 questions and I did them as one answer. The problem is it saved that as one gigantic memory. If you say one at a time, it will save them as individual memories. So then you can delete them individually. So that's a pro tip, is to do something like that. I'm curious, Andy, if you've got any things. Do you have your users kind of do like a 20 questions, interview me to understand my preferences or anything like that?
I'll be honest with you. I'm still trying to really understand when I would want to use instructions versus memories. And
yeah,
I find myself using instructions more than I do memories. I find that
I do too.
Sometimes, and it's not just Copilot that does this, it's the other AI tools as well. when it starts adding too much to the memory, it focuses more on that. Even when I ask a question that's not related to that memory, it brings that memory back into the context, and I
Mhm.
don't always want that. I get a what now. It's like, well, in your role as a Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption specialist, and as a
Yeah.
AI Copilot development manager, this is how it applies. And I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need that
I've
context
noticed that it
in
does
the
that
thing that I'm
too
asking you.
aggressively.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy, dude. Like I was asking about smart lights, like for my patio, and it was like, in your role as an enterprise architect, you'd really appreciate this. It's like, dude, I'm asking about patio lights. Like, read the room. You know?
Yep.
It
So
does that crap all the time.
I think that's what I'm struggling to like wrap my head around. Like, how much memory do I want to give it versus like how many instructions do like I want to give it? And like,
Yeah.
I haven't found that balance yet. I haven't done, the interview me and ask 20 questions to get to know me. Through the last few years of using ChatGPT, it's built up some memory of me, and it uses
Hmm.
that to inform a lot of its responses. But it does lean too much on my work life, even when I'm asking it, things that are not related to work. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing in the other apps as well. I did ask Copilot, how would you explain the difference between instructions and memories in Microsoft 365 Copilot for an end user? And then can you provide a few examples of what to use when?
Yeah.
I'm going to put that in the chat in LinkedIn so that people can see like that
Okay.
that output. This is its explanation, but admittedly, I'm kind of struggling to figure out really how much memory I want to give it, because it is a little aggressive in how it returns that.
Yeah. So that's one way there. Another thing that popped into my mind was, and this is that little memory updated tag, is you might do something like this. Hey, Copilot, I want some help with creating my custom instructions for my interactions with you. So could you look at all of our chat history and try to understand and infer what my preferences are? And then I want you to draft some custom instructions for me that I could just paste into the settings for Copilot. So I'll throw that in there. And there's an idea, and I did it a little bit too fast. It kind of, cut off the end there because I did the microphone. But here's some different custom instructions, like be direct and formal. And this would come from me, like going back to Copilot and being like, dude, that's too wordy. Like, be real with Copilot. I call it dude all the time. I say, hey, what are you talking about here? Like that wasn't what I wanted at all. So I kind of express my opinion back to Copilot. And then that's part of my chat history. So you could use that to kind of write some custom instructions. And see, that's a 9 out of 10. It's highly aligned with your observed behavior, right? So that's something that you could try. And another thing that I've noticed, which is like fairly new, like about a month or two ago, is when you are doing something that is along the lines of what an agent could do with you, you'll notice it starts to recommend agents here. So it's like, hey, you're asking for a prompt or you're doing some meta prompting. Why don't you try Prompt Coach, right? So I've noticed that it's started to do that a little bit, which kind of moves us a little bit further down. It jumps one of your categories and goes into Agent Builder and Studio and all that. So I don't want to go too far ahead. But I've noticed that it'll kind of start to lead you towards like, hey, this is more suited for an agent that has some custom behavior built into it.
Yeah.
But that's something people can try too.
So we want to keep it moving. We want to transition from the reusable.
Yeah,
branch
let's look
and
back at
start
your
talking
picture
about
here.
some long context.
Yep. So we've got ephemeral, one-off conversation. I'm just looking for an answer. Reusable. I don't want to type all the time. I want to just click a button and pop it in. Maybe I want it to run for me because it's a scheduled prompt. Into that long context. This is something I do not do a good job of, to be honest, which is I want to chat with Copilot and I want to take it and do something with it. I find that I end up context switching out to like the other application, like Word or PowerPoint or something. But you have two tools that are right there inside of Copilot. One of them is a page where you can save the output from that conversation, save that response, and start editing it and tuning it without having to go into a completely different app, then forgetting that Copilot is there to follow up with. The other one is Notebooks, which is collecting a bunch of shards of all these conversations and these pages and these files you're working on, and like grouping all of that stuff together into what they call a notebook. I like to call notebooks the junk drawer, because everybody, at least in the US, this is kind of a cultural thing. Everybody in every kitchen has that drawer in their kitchen where they just throw crap that doesn't have a spot. And we've always called it the junk drawer growing up. The notebook is my junk drawer for my project that I'm working on. So I kind of use that to just throw things. The page for me more is I want to get to an actual result. So I want like, oh, draft me this, or I want an outline, and I want to edit that thing in line. That's when I switch over to a page and I like bring up a page. So it's a little bit more of a single conversation thing versus a notebook being a container about a project or something like that. I hope I didn't butcher that from how you explain it to your users, but we are finally just turning this on in my organization, so I need to get better about explaining it. But that's just how I do it personally, is like, am I dumping it into a bucket or am I writing it on a sticky note?
So your approach is a little bit different than mine when it comes to explaining pages in notebooks. For me, page is how I start the journey to a deliverable, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But chat is ephemeral, and if you get a retention policy on chat, it's only there for a certain period of time. When you purposely turn it into a page, you're creating a file, a document, an artifact that you can get back to, because it is accessible through Copilot library. It is available inside of Microsoft Loop in your workspace. You can access it through Work IQ, Context IQ, add work content, whatever we're calling it today. And it starts to become a file. It becomes it's a draft, essentially. It's loose leaf. And for me, that's more of the drawer. It's that loose leaf file. It might live in my workspace, and rather than talking about it, we'll go and visualize it. So like I go in, and like we've got like Loop in the web browser. And so I'm able to go in and I have, my workspace. And so I have my collection of files, either Loop pages that I purposely created and typed out and, done work on, or I've got the output of Copilot pages that I've been working on. And I had a chat and I'm like, this is good information. Let me start to save this and turn it into something. Well, it's just loose leaf, essentially. It does live in my workspace, but my workspace is that drawer. And then on the other side of that, if we go back into Copilot itself, and we're working here, we have this library. That's a good screenshot. Let me grab that. We got this this library available, and the library is where your Copilot pages are immediately accessible. Again, they're still loose leaf. It's not until you start taking these and putting them into notebooks where you start organizing them, and that's when you start creating something to manage a project, something that you want to turn into a purposely reusable item. And really, when I think about notebooks, and man, I'm going to get old school with this, I think about physical notebooks. This is a physical notebook. And if you look closely, it says Flow, because I've had it that long. Since Power Automate was known as Flow, I've had this notebook like that long, and I haven't filled it up and I haven't used it. I watched a video not too long ago, Peter McKinnon and Casey Neistat, and they were talking about notebooks and journaling and like being purposeful in that. And Casey's got years and years of notebooks. And in the episode, he went and he was just scrolling through some of his notebooks, and he's like, "Oh, I remember that day. This thing was so much fun." I've always wanted to do that level of journaling. The problem is I don't think that I have anything important enough to put in the notebook to take up the page. and take up that space. And so I never fill out a notebook. In fact, I have stacks of notebooks just literally sitting around my office because I haven't filled them up, or I haven't thought this is good enough to actually go into that notebook to do the thing. So the notebooks for me are not the junk drawer. The notebooks are where work can actually start to happen. And I like to use notebooks in the Copilot world intentionally for light project management, for light workloads. I like to use notebooks for my meetings. So like I have meetings with these people on these topics and I have them regularly. Let me create a notebook, generate my notes for that meeting, put it in that notebook, and then reason over that before I go into the next meeting so that I can track what's been going on over the last like series of meetings. John and I are developing a workshop. Let me create some notes and some reference material, start putting it in a notebook so it's in one place. And then I get that Copilot chat capability. So we approach it like way differently. And I think once you start working with it, you might see kind of a different view for it. I'm curious to see what your learning journey looks like as you get into it.
Yeah.
But let's
You've got
actually
me thinking about this might be a solution to my problem I talked about at the very beginning, which is like I'm losing track of like, why was I doing this? Where's that file? What's that? Maybe I need to make a notebook for.
I had that exact same.
Yeah, maybe I need to make a notebook
that.
for like, oh, hey, John, you're going to do this presentation 3 weeks from now for this group in talent. Mm-hmm. Maybe I need to make a notebook for that so I can put in the notebook, hey, here's the meeting notes, right? Now I know who it is, why I'm doing this, what they want. When I make the draft in CoWork, maybe I need to take that file and add it to the notebook as a reference. That way now I know where the file is because I could navigate to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe I'll start doing that. I need to put a sticky note on my monitor that says, make a notebook, dummy. Because I'll forget. Yeah, I'll forget to do it. But that's an interesting concept. Maybe I need to like, okay, someone is asking me to do something. I should make a notebook for it. Because I think my trouble always is like, I don't know if this is like a very simple task and I can just knock it out and be done with it. Or if this is going to be something that's going to linger for days or weeks. And like, I really need to organize the work. I have trouble figuring out like what's a project and what's not a project.
Yeah.
But I've noticed like notebooks they're kind of almost throwaway in the form that I've noticed that Microsoft, when you go to notebooks, it was like, we generated 5 notebooks for you. It's trying to intelligently group things together for you. So it feels like they're not putting a lot of value on the individual notebook as living forever and being like a SharePoint repository, for example.
Right.
It's more of like hey, we've noticed there's like 3 things along a theme here. So we just made you a suggested notebook. And maybe I should take advantage of that more, you know?
So let's step through that. Let's get to that particular point. We were just talking a minute ago around instructions and memories. And I said that I actually had Copilot create a prompt. I literally did it while you were doing the demo on your memories. Okay. And so I had to create this explainer that it really explains the difference. And that's what I put in the LinkedIn chat for those that are following along. So this is a chat, and this is subject to that retention policy that we were talking about earlier. So when I get to the end of the chat, as a user, I have the option to either leave it here, subject to the retention policy, and try to get back to it later. I can do the tried and true copy paste from here into whatever my note-taking app of choice is.
Which is what I do, is old school.
Yep. Or we can go in and we can start to edit this in Copilot Pages. I can add this to recent pages that I have out there. So it's going to look for other pages, and I can, maybe cross-reference other conversations and other outputs and start to build, research material from the other things that I've done. I can go in and I could create a brand new page related to this. That's going to live in my Loop workspace, but it's going to be a Copilot page, and I would be able to get back to it. There's even the export option here. So I could export this to a Word document, depending on the output, or I could edit this in a page. Again, it's showing up underneath there. And that kind of adds to the capabilities. I do want to mention, though, that when you're working with like just Copilot chat, if you go into capabilities, you have the some options inside of here, like create a document. That'll create a Word document right away, create a visual. I've even seen an option to create in a page and kind of create an interactive page. well with it. But I'm going to go and I'm just going to say edit pages. And now
I
I'm
would
going to
like
add
to
it
see
to a
a
new
third
page.
thing there. It would be really nice if there was a third one that was like add to a recent page, make a new page, or make a new page in a notebook and kind of like take that second step out. That would be
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be. What we've done now is we've taken this chat, which is in some cases ephemeral, and we've now turned it into a deliverable powered by Microsoft Loop. It's essentially stored in my OneDrive. It lives in my Loop workspace, but it's a Copilot page. And now I can free text and append and work on this however I want. I've got the full capabilities of Loop for things like tables and checklists and codes and callouts, text styles, and more. I get all of those capabilities. I have the ability to hand it off to a deliverable, depending on the content, Word, PDF. I've seen Excel, I've seen PowerPoint in here. I've got the ability to share this with a colleague, and now we can collaborate on this page together. So I could hand this to John, and he would be able to collaborate on it with me, and we could both work on it. I could copy it as a Loop component and embed it in something else if I needed to. While I'm working, though, I can make it full screen and just focus in on the page and the content. And I like the interactivity of a Copilot page. So as I'm moving through here, it's not just about text, it's also about rich data. So like I look at this table here, I have the same kind of controls that I would have if I were in Excel. I can make columns wider if I need to. I can sort and I can filter inside of here. My favorite feature is I can make this full screen, and I use this all the time, especially when I got a table in there. Make it full width of the window so I can see what's going on. And other times you can click on this button, the ellipsis, and depending on the table type, it might even have an export to Excel option. And I love that feature, especially for a larger table. I use that one all the time. So I get rich tables inside of here. I get divider lines and more. But this is a living, breathing document now based off of that Copilot chat that I just had, but it's a page, it's an artifact that could be a draft document that starts me into the process of creating a deliverable. And that's huge. And then last couple of things I'll show here is in the lower right-hand corner, there are some shortcuts where you can do things like adjust the content globally. You could change the tone globally. You could style the page globally. That's actually built in. But the other part of this is outside of here. I'm going to close the page. Now I'm right back in the chat. And now I can do the next thing in the chat. So I could ask it another question, and if I needed to after that other question, then I could go and maybe add to a recent page or add to the one that I just created. So I can continue my interaction with Copilot, continue building something, and I use this all the time for research. Let's do some research, let's start organizing things, and then when I get it into a Copilot page, it's easy for you to actually organize because you can select, and then you got these sliders, and you can use this to like drag and drop and move things around in the page wherever you want. You can quickly reorganize stuff. So for me, it takes chat responses, turns them into research, starts creating notes, and then I can move into the next thing. And I did want to show this last piece. I was able to get back to that page by going to the bottom of the chat conversation that I was having and clicking on this little guy right here. But if you go to library along the left-hand navigation, that's where your pages live, and they're not subject to that retention policy. They live on here almost indefinitely. And so you can go back many different months and you can find your pages. And so you'll notice that there's a lot of names in here. I do a lot of different work and research in here. This is a demo tenant. We do a lot of demos inside of here as well. The names don't always line up with the content. Sometimes it says like untitled. So go into your page, and in the upper corner right up here, that's where you can actually define and update the name. Now you see it has the name here, instructions versus memory in Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's certain symbols and text that you can't use in there, but once you rename it, it should eventually update in that library, and then you're going to see it the next time. So that's how you get started with pages. And I think they're great for taking chat output, turning it into draft, scratchpad, a light note, and then really the next big handoff is to take that to a notebook. And we'll talk about notebooks more in a minute. But while we're here on library, I just want to point out You can go and search your library by title pretty quickly. So renaming these needs to be part of your operating instructions. Rename it something meaningful. The other thing that I like that you can do is you can just go and create a brand new page right from here. So maybe you clip something from the internet and you just want to start creating a page. You can do that. Now you're into a Copilot page. And if you minimize it, there's your friend chat on the side. So you can even start blank and then bring back up Copilot chat and do the next thing and like keep iterating and keep moving along. But library, I think, is really powerful. And pages, I think, are even more powerful. And that's where I see a lot of light bulbs starting to go off. It's like, okay, there's an easy button for me to create a deliverable out of this, and this is the path to get to it. And once you start down that path, that's when you really sort of see how powerful this can be.
That's interesting because, I feel like the library is a little bit of an unsung hero. It's like it feels really immature. There's not a lot to it. But yeah, the new page thing, that could be a really nice addition. One glaring omission or gap that I've noticed, Winter Raven kind of reminded me, he was talking about co-work, is unfortunately, I haven't been able to make a Copilot page out of a co-work session. So that's a huge bummer because like I'll do kind of some ideation and then I want to turn it into a page, but it doesn't want to do that. It wants to make like a Word document or a PowerPoint slide to like store in the folder for the output of that session. So I'm hoping that Microsoft, will bring that into the co-work world, but that's something I've noticed where I'm like, oh man, I went down the wrong path. So I can't make a page out of this. Like our show notes, right? I was telling you, like I was sending you the outline today. I did that in co-work. And then I wanted to like edit the timings on it, but I couldn't make it into a page. I was like, dang it. So I had to make it into a Word document. Then I could edit those things, and I'm like, what year is it? I want to use a page, So
on the topic of pages though, we should point out that pages do a couple other things that are super impressive, especially when you start working with the code blocks that are built into it. The code blocks support a lot of rich coding types, JSON, HTML, JavaScript, and more.
Mermaid.
You can do some, well, I'm getting to that one in a second, but you can do some
HTML
really
and Mermaid are my big ones.
You can do some really cool things inside of here, and I'm gonna go off the rails on this one, John. I'm just gonna tell it. Let's see. We've got the file out there for, what do we call it? Was it like foot traffic? We did some research.
Yeah. It was like, I think it was search for the word traffic because it was like a heat traffic thing where I used like some Google data.
No, it's not finding that. I'll tell you what, I got some fictitious data here.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah, it was in our like data set around like store planning or whatever, like a year and a half ago.
We'll go with store inventory.
Okay.
Create some interesting charts, graphs, and visuals from this data set. Now I'm doing this in Copilot chat. All right. And we're pointing it to that store inventory list. So we're going to see what it pulls back. So just stick with this.
And this is something you could do in Excel, right? You'd open up Excel, you'd like go into the Copilot sidebar and ask for that. And it'll do Excel-y type of things, right? It'll make a chart in Excel and you could go in and edit it that way. This one is going to do code interpreter, which means it's going to write some code to do those graphics for you. And I've noticed, like it's doing Python right now. Sometimes it'll do Python, sometimes it'll do Mermaid.
We're just
this one, it's also doing a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm going to let it run for a minute. What I'm hoping is that we're going to get a couple of interesting graphics. And while it's doing that, I do want to point out, like, this is actually clickable. So I could actually click on this and then go and view the actual data set. And I can see the analytics and I can see like all the sheets and all the information that's inside of there. It's super helpful. But I'm going to head back to just the chat. I know this
I
is like
really like
watching
the
paint
side by
dry.
side view. So I wish when you clicked on that it would have opened up in the side and kept the chat going. That would have been really nice. Yeah,
For those
without
that
having
don't
to do
know,
that.
in Edge, in Edge, you have
Split
that
view.
split screen view, which is super helpful. I use that
I've
all the
been
time.
using that a lot lately. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. All right, come on, you can do it. Just give me the output.
Yeah. That
So
is
I
a
really
lot of
want to show
Python.
this next. Yeah,
Look how little that scroll bar is.
doesn't show how many rows. All right, but there's a payoff to this. Fast forward in the video if you're watching this later. Just hit that double click, that do. But there's a payoff to this. Oh, that's so much. Just
It's
give
like
me
when
the
we were
output.
waiting for that GitHub Copilot demo at M365 conference to finish with Dwayne.
Yeah.
It was like 3 minutes over, and we're just like, finish coding.
Should have ran this ahead of time. I wasn't
That's all right.
planning on doing this particular one, but there's a really cool
This is interesting.
theme.
It looks like Claude's showing up in more places too.
Yes.
Or 4.8. Yeah.
I saw it in Excel earlier, so PowerPoint's
Okay.
interesting this there. I'll have to check that out.
What I've seen on Reddit of all places, which is like particularly negative, is that it sounds like people are liking Opus 4.8. People were not liking 4.7, but it seems like the general consensus is more positive. Either that or the bots on Reddit got tuned a little bit to be more positive.
All right, so here we go. Now we've got some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm in Copilot chat for this, okay? So we've got this chart here, and this chart, I can copy it to my clipboard. I can display it as a static image instead, implying that I can see it's interactive when I hover over certain elements of it. That interactivity is native to Copilot chat. Scroll down to this visual, and then you got the chart over to the side. Display it as an interactive chart.
Yeah, so that one started out. Yeah, and now it's interactive. It's interesting that it did some of them static, some of them not.
So the point of this is these are interactive while I'm in Copilot chat, but taking it back to Copilot pages, let's scroll down and let's take it to a Copilot page. Let's go and add it to a brand new page. So now we're in a Copilot page. It brought over the same charts, the same graphics. It kept the interactivity. Now this is powered by a web connection. It's live because I'm connected to the net, but I can go back and forth between a static image and an interactive image. And I'm using this more and more in presentations and leaning less and less on PowerPoint. I'm using collapsible sections inside of a Copilot page. Here's the thing I want to show you. Let's move on to the next one. So the interactivity part, I think, is a really cool visualization that you get with the Copilot page. You can expand some of these and make them go full width of the window. You can copy the image to the clipboard, take it, put it in another app. You can download it as a PNG image if you need to. The interactivity shows up in, I'm going to call this a canvas, the Copilot page, the canvas. The interactivity stays there. And I think that's just really, really cool. And I've seen more and more of this over the last few months. So I love Copilot pages for that. And for those people that do a lot of analytics, this is a really quick win to get a data visualization from a data set. And some of these charts and graphs, like this one will be really complex to build, a lot of conditional formatting. This one would be really complex to build. The interactivity in here might be something that I would have to do with Power BI. Where's my Power BI people? Chime in and let me know. Can we do the interactivity like we're doing here in Power BI these days? I'm a little out of practice. Where's Daniel Glenn when I need him? But I just think that's really cool. And you get that in a Copilot page. And so you can start in the conversation and tell it, give me a visualization, make suggestions for visualizations. How can I visualize this data in an impactful way? Use this chart type, give me 3 different chart types to pick from, create a Copilot page around it. And then you've got an interactive document that you can share or you can use as part of a presentation. I just think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so should we look at notebooks real quick and then move into agents? The one thing I wanted to talk about with notebooks or look at was the things you can make out of a notebook, right? So like we talked about putting things in the notebook, like, oh, if I got a co-work session, I could go add that PowerPoint in, or, you showed adding pages to a notebook. So you go through that interface, you like add something to a notebook and you can just pick any one of them. And then when you jump into the notebook, you can make things out of a notebook, right? So you got inputs and outputs.
Before we even get into that, it's like I'm adding it. There's no new button here. Like I don't see a new notebook. I can only add from an existing notebook.
Yeah, the other way would be to go create the notebook and then add it from like your recents.
So let's do that. Let's go to notebooks up here. And it's giving me, I found a bug.
Yeah, it like goes out of that.
Go to notebooks. There we go. So now it's giving me, okay, here's some notebooks that are generated for you. You were talking about that a moment ago. Down here are notebooks that I've created. This is a personal notebook. It's private. It's just for me. This is a shared notebook. Shared this with Daniel Christian. He and I are teaming up on a workshop at TechCon 365 Chicago coming up in June. Use code Honeycut 200 and get a couple $100 off of your workshop experience or your conference experience. Shameless plug. So you can have shared notebooks in addition to private notebooks, or you can just create a new one. So I'm going to create a new one, and we'll call this what to use when. As we're starting the creation process, though, you have the all filter selected, and we can pick from things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, meetings, Copilot pages, PDF files, and more. In fact, if we go through the files option here, I want to see, are we going to be able to select OneNote? You can select OneNote.
That's new meetings. As of like a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So meetings, I don't have a meeting named that, but John and I have meeting series, content planning weekly. We can go in and I can pull one of our meetings.
And that's a series. So if you click into that, you'd be able to select the instances. Yeah. So you don't have to do all of them.
And with this one, remember, there's a number of different signals that make up a meeting: the invite, the meeting chat, a transcription or recording, Teams meeting notes. There's files that are shared during the meeting, and then as a part of a series. So you can reason on a series of meetings, which is really cool. You can also pull stuff from like your SharePoint sites if you need to. And so you can go and pull from libraries inside of the SharePoint sites. You can even drag and drop content right down here. So we can pull from a lot of different file types. I want to pull from that one. I'm gonna go back to files, and I'm looking for instructions, that instructions document that I had just a minute ago. Intro. No, that's
maybe it hasn't been long enough.
Instructions versus memories. That's the one that I want. There's another way to add it. So we'll just do a new notebook. When I would potentially be able to add it here. It's maybe if I do memories, it'll pop up. No, and that's fine. There's another way to get it in there. You're not limited with just these items. You can upload from your device. You can add links to websites as long as it's not more than a couple of sublinks deep. And then you can browse through your cloud files intentionally through the OneDrive File Explorer, which is what I'm calling it, because that gives you access to your files in OneDrive, but it also gives you access to SharePoint and Microsoft Teams and the corresponding content that lives in those locations through this interface. I'm just going to go ahead and create this, and that takes us into our notebook. And so this is our notebook, and this is the interface you get when you start. I'm going to expand this on the left-hand sidebar, and now I can add in reference material, and I can go and seek out something inside of here using that same interface when we were starting this. But what makes notebooks different is when you go to reason against a notebook, it's reasoning against the knowledge sources that are built into the notebook. So from the GCSE, the sources are scoped to the notebook. And the last time I looked at the limits, it was 100 sources within the notebook. So
And
the
you do have
reason,
to have something in the notebook in order to start chatting. That's why his chat is like grayed out
yeah,
and it's giving him that message. It's like, I can't do anything if I don't have anything to work with. So
right.
that's why he's getting that banner.
But what makes this great is that we're taking one of the things away from the prompt engineering techniques, GCSE. We're building it into the notebook. So I know every time I need to do something related to this task, I go to this notebook for it. And that's where I think you're going to start to see dividends when this opens up for you in your environment. You're going to be able to take those one-on-one meeting notes and put them in a notebook for that, and then pick up very quickly for next week's meeting. You're going to be able to take those action items that you're working on for a specific project, and that project notebook becomes the destination. And that's the framing that you need around notebooks. It's the equivalent of a project in Chat GPT. It's the equivalent of a project in Anthropic's Claude model. Here, we call it notebooks. Google calls it Notebook LM. We get a lot of the same capabilities, but it starts with your reference material first. It's scoped on that, and then we can build out some other really cool things inside of the notebook. So we can add content to it. I'm just going to drag and drop something into it real quick, just so we got something to start with. So give me 1 second.
Maybe grab that infographic from your from your blog post, the drawing.
That was the goal. Now, where's my preview menu? 14. Yeah, so that's the one that I want. I'm going to go in. Let me grab that. Go ahead and see, it doesn't like an image. It wants Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, and it's got to be under 250 gigs. That was a PNG, so it hasn't opened it up to images
Holy
yet.
crap.
Let me see.
It's a lot of space.
My preview menu just disappeared off the screen. This is the greatest demo ever. Well, the notebook's created, so I'm just going to do the other way. I'm going to head back to library, instructions versus memory, add that to a notebook. What to use when is right there. Now it's in the notebook. Let's head back to our notebook. We'll do a better version of this in the near future. Then we go in, and that file is in there.
Yeah. Now your chat has things underneath it, you know. It has suggested prompts because something exists for it to work against.
So we've got some reference material, but notice it's also generating an overview. Notebooks create an overview summary automatically based off of the content. So it's using AI and a proprietary prompt to give you an overview of the content that's in there, to summarize everything that's actually in there. And you can regenerate that at any time, get a refreshed version of it. But as you add more content, this is going to update, and it's going to become different, and it's going to become unique as you're running it. And I just had an idea, and I'm going to grab, I don't know if it's going to let me do, we're going to see if it'll let me do this. This is a text file. Yeah, I didn't like that. That was a text file in Markdown. I didn't like that in Markdown. So, well, we'll come back to that. But now I've got something in here. Now I can go and have Copilot reason over the content that lives in the notebook. And the more reference material that I add to it, the more grounded it is in that data. But that's not the only things that you can do in here. You also have the ability to create new content. So you can create new audio overviews. In Frontier, we can create mind maps, which is pretty cool.
It's a pretty big list now.
Yeah. The study guide is pretty neat. Interactive question and answer experience. Create Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Create an infographic. Ami was talking about that in the chat just a little while ago.
Yeah, can you click on that one? I want to see what it looks like, if it's the same style as what it does in Researcher, or it's like blue background with white boxes on it. I suspect probably. The mind map is pretty cool though, because you can like collapse the little threads and expand them out, and it's interactive. The mind map is really good.
Yeah.
The study guide, I haven't done too much of that. It's kind of like flashcards, right?
Very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
as we're looking at this, I'm looking at the chat box down at the bottom, and they've even updated this. So they're using Designer for the infographic. Create an infographic is an option, and then there's a choose style option as well. So they're bringing in a lot of like rich media controls, which I think is just really cool.
That's that competing with Notebook LM thing, because Notebook LM is all about the media that you can create out of the notebook, right?
Well, the other thing, I mean, the audio overview, that's something that Notebook LM's had for a while. We can do an audio overview here as well, which is really cool.
I do this every single month with our What's New and Next at EY. I get about 10,000 people will watch the live stream, and then I create a recap where I grab the 2 transcripts from the 2 sessions and the slide deck. I throw them into a notebook, and then I do an audio overview, and it makes a 5-minute podcast out of my 2-hour-long sessions. So this looks like it's creating like a raster image rather than what happens in Researcher when you say you want an infographic. It writes an HTML page as a Copilot page. So it's interactive and it's rendered as HTML. This looks like it's doing image generation.
Yeah.
Which then I'm like, okay, what version of image generation is he using?
There we go. So
that looks pretty good.
Memory. And I'm going to click on it. That is, as Ami said, it looks like it does when you're in Create. Yeah, because it's using Designer. So it's got an infographic. We have the tools to enhance and crop and so forth and so on. I'm going to download that. I'll try to...
There's so much text on there that's got to be image gen too.
I'll try to share that on LinkedIn so you all can go and like explore it. I love
to zoom in and see if it's gibberish.
I love how we got the pirate flag on there. I think that's really cool. But like if we go over here, created content, it does show that this is created content inside of here. We do have the ability to delete it. Can't rename it, which is unfortunate unless you can't go up there and rename it.
Interesting.
Yeah. It can expand or collapse. So that's unique. That's new. Haven't seen that before. But to sort of let's go back to the overview. So now we've got a couple of files in here, infographic. The last thing, 2 things really I want to cover here, and we'll move on, is when we go up to the upper left-hand corner, you do have Copilot instructions that are specific to the notebook. So you can tell Copilot how to focus in on topics, tone, or respond in this notebook independent of the instructions that you set earlier for your general Copilot chats. So every notebook can have a specific set of instructions. This person prefers responses and output in this type and tone and format. These are the things that you need to know about this interaction. These are the takeaways or the action items that I'm looking for here. You can be very specific in each notebook as the instructions and what you're going to get. And then the last thing is the notebooks can be shared. Now, the last time I've tested this, which was not long ago, I can only share it within the same Microsoft tenant. I can't share it with somebody outside of the current tenant. So I would be able to share this with John, and he would be able, inside of our tenant, to collaborate on it. And then we could work on the notebook together, and then we could start getting work done. So notebooks are super powerful. I'm a big fan of them, and I'm using these more and more. But the number one question that I get from people across the board is, well, how is that different than a OneNote notebook? And why wouldn't I want to use OneNote? Well, let's further confuse you. I'm going to go into OneNote as we wrap up this demo. I've got a OneNote notebook right here. Let's open that up in the web browser. Maybe, eventually. What you're going to see, and I don't have it here in the web version, but what you're going to see in OneNote desktop is even before your OneNote notebooks show up in this left-hand navigation, you're going to see Copilot notebooks in OneNote, in the OneNote desktop app. So Copilot notebooks exist in OneNote, the app, alongside your OneNote notebooks. That's not confusing at all, but that's another entry point for you to get to a Copilot notebook. It's just not on the web right now. It is on the desktop. And and it would take too long for my desktop to open up, so I'm not going to demo that today. But maybe we'll do a whole deep dive on just notebooks and some specific use cases in a future episode. So I know we need to get into agents, and I want to do that. So let me just remove that real quick. This is how you start to take the output of a conversation, turn it into the start of a deliverable, start to consolidate it with other resources, create something for light project management, and then you can add things like custom instructions. And so each notebook can have different use cases and different outputs. And that gets you started down the path of project management or consolidated Copilot chat experiences. But now we need to get into the last thing we're going to talk about today, automation. That's where we can get into agents. And there's no shortage of agents that we can work with now. There are many different agents. And a couple of years ago, I joked and I said that Microsoft was putting the prompt in front of the horse because it was prompt engineering all the time, every time. And I'm like, they don't even know how to use chat yet. Now I think we're putting the agent in front of the horse because now it's all agent, agent, agent. But look at all the tools that we covered here today, from memory to instructions to sharing prompts and prompt gallery to pages and the notebooks. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do before you even get into a project and into an agent. And agents don't even cover some of the things that we covered here today that are really powerful, that can make deliverables and outputs really cool. So, John, you want to take over and talk about agents a little bit?
Yeah. So whenever you want to package something up, right? We started with like the ephemeral chat, and then maybe you want to reuse that chat. If you want to create a persona, right, is kind of maybe not the right terminology, but it's something that works. If you want to create something that when you interact with it, it's going to interact with you with a specific tone, or it's going to behave in a certain way, that's whenever I start thinking about agents. And primarily I think about agent builder. So whenever I kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm doing something and I'm doing it often, and I don't want to do the same exact response every time, but I want like the same style of stuff to come back, or maybe I want to do what's the word? Hold on. There we go. my monitor started blinking at me to do like some OLED cleaning thing. If I want to do like work with specific knowledge or specific set of data, but I don't want to have to add it every single time, those are what kind of start to get me to trigger into thinking into an agent or agent builder. So if I grab the screen here, I'm going to move you out of the way, take over the screen right here. So inside, say that I've got like a prompt that I would do, which is like, hey, I want you to look over the last 30 days at everything that has changed with Microsoft 365 Copilot, and I want you to organize it through into what's new, what's coming next, and why you should care about each item. So we do that, we send that in. That would be like your ephemeral prompt, right? It's a one-off type of thing. And maybe like, okay, I want to do this every single month. Then you would wait for this to finish. We'll let it actually finish here. And then you would save it, right? You'd mouse over, you would save it with the bookmark icon. And then here's like what matters, right? So in the last 30 days, here's what's come out. No fluff, no opinionated stuff. TLDR, what actually matters is shifting from an assistant to like a huge orchestration layer. It's being harnessed, right? Agents and notebooks are the center of gravity now, blah, blah, blah. So this is what's new. And you can see, one, maybe I want to run this every month. So maybe I save it as a prompt and then go run it manually. Maybe I want to run it every month at the last day of the month. So I schedule it, right? I would schedule it and it would run this exact text. However, if I want it to be a little bit better, you'll notice that as I go through, this is like from the Win Central. This is from like a guide to cloud. This is coming from like casting a wide net, right? It's doing a big web search. However, I know that if I wanted to have kind of the same quality, I would probably want to pull from the same sources every time. So like this one here, this is release notes for Copilot. That's a pretty good source. So I'm going to open that one up separately. Another one down here. Let's see who else. Let's skip these other ones like a guide to cloud, Fast Company, Windows latest. Here's another one from Microsoft. Okay, this is what's new in Copilot Studio. That looks pretty good. So like I've got a couple of sources, right? So it's done. I could save it right here. I could schedule it. But what I want to do is I want to make an agent out of this because I want to pull from the same sources every time. Like I've identified that both of these are really good sources. Like if I go up to monthly updates, this is from the horse's mouth, right? This is from Microsoft. This is release notes. They get updated every time there's updates, right? And this is one giant page for that. So what I would want to do is I would want to make an agent that does this type of thing. So I go over to agents. I'm going to make a new agent, and then I could like go in and start configuring, but I want to just explain what it is. I want to make an agent that will look at a rolling previous 30 days of Microsoft 365 Copilot, tell me what's new, tell me what's next, and tell me why I should care. I want it to use authoritative data so I have consistency. So we stop doing that, we hit go, and then now it's going to start writing instructions right there, and it's probably going to ask me some questions about like, oh, well, what is the authoritative data? I'm just going to skip that kind of chat back and forth, but now I've got this, I want you to monitor and do these things for me. It wrote the instructions, but this knowledge, this is key. So I'm going to grab this knowledge, I'm going to add that in, and I'm going to add that as a site, right? So right there. And then monthly updates, I want this blog to work for me. So I'm going to add, yeah, I can't go more than 2 levels deep, but I've got like this blog and I've got learn.microsoft. So that's good authoritative data. I only want to use the specified sources because I want it to work, more accurately. I don't really want to search everywhere because who knows what misinformation is out there. Other things I can have it do, I can have it make like, PowerPoints and stuff like that. I can have it make images. So now it's got like, what I should care. Let's add another one that says monthly roll up. And this one will be give me what's new, what's next, why I should care, and put it in a PowerPoint deck, right? So I've got that now as a canned prompt ready for me. Go ahead and create that agent. And now, instead of having to go through and go find the prompt and use the same prompt and then go vet the sources, and maybe it didn't pick good sources this time, so I got to kind of throw some of that away or, whatever. Now, I've got this Copilot Updates Advisor. I can go in here and I can say, hey, give me the monthly roll-up and put it in a PowerPoint deck. So I think we found another bug because my pre-canned responses, my pre-canned prompts didn't show up right there. But we're going to let that thing go. Probably it would be under Amy's helpful thing, which is the prompt gallery. Something went wrong, of course. Let me open up a new window here, copilot.cloud.microsoft. And let's bring this up. Go into prompt gallery, which is the 3 dots. Agent prompts. I've got that one, which was, what was it called, Andy? Copilot Advisor or something, Copilot Updates Advisor. It's not showing yet. Yeah, it's not showing in the list. But theoretically, I made one over here. Those pre-canned responses would show up right here as well, so I could get them that way. But this is working. It's evaluating which responses. I'm going to get a quick answer because I don't want to watch paint dry. But now it's going to go through and it's going to give me those updates from those sources. I'm kind of kneecapping it a little bit, so it's going to, not give me as good quality. But finally, it would also do something, which is create a PowerPoint deck, because I gave the agent that capability when I configured the agent. So we'll just pretend that this finishes here. So the idea is like, I'm giving it authoritative data, whether that is external websites or like we've got an SOP or a standard operating procedure that is documented and it lives on a SharePoint or it lives in this Word document or something like that. By adding that to an agent, you get a little bit more on Rails experience. You get a little bit more guardrails and safety and predictable quality level, right? That would be where whenever you want to move on that spectrum of ephemeral chat to something that's repeatable, at a certain quality level, that then you could operationalize that thing and share it with somebody else. The other benefit is rather than saving that prompt in the gallery and then sending a link to somebody and then they have to store that link somewhere, right? Like, where do I store this prompt? I have to remember to go to the prompt gallery. If you package it up as an agent, you can go and you can share that agent. Now you can give that to like Andy Honeycutt, and then he could install this agent and have it living right here pinned on the side. It's just like less clicks to get to that thing. So that's another reason why you might want to go for the agent. And it looks like because I bailed out early, it didn't make the PowerPoint for me. So whatever. It would have worked if I let it actually finish. But that's something that, like, if I want it to be a little bit more repeatable, I would put it into an agent and I could tune that agent with the instructions to say, hey, here's the POTX file. I want you to format it this way. The PowerPoint has these slides with these placeholder tags. So I want you to fill in those text boxes where the placeholders are. You have more control over it if you can bake it into a set of instructions. So you don't have to give this monster prompt to somebody and it's like this humongous prompt. You're kind of putting that behind the scenes in instructions for the agent. Anything to add to that, Andy? That's kind of what I'm thinking along the lines of whenever I bail out from a chat and make an agent out of it, because I want shareability, repeatability, and quality level.
I mean, that's really what it is. It's about a consistent, repeatable output for a task that you do regularly. It's not for those ad hoc, I just need an answer to this quickly. It's for, and I think the mindset you need to get in is the task. I have to do this similar type of task on a recurring basis. An agent is an easy button into that because you can define role, instructions, behavior, knowledge sources, and get a consistent output and share it with other people and allow other people to handle some part of that task. Agents are really, really good at that. But it also leads into the barrier. Right now, these agents are not actionable other than it can create an output either in chat or maybe a document. It can create content. But what it can't do is really the next thing a lot of people want is take action on my behalf, automate this particular process. That's where you have to step into things like a Copilot Studio. That's where you would get actions and automation and agent-to-agent orchestration and MCPs and so forth and so on. And that's, I think, where a lot of people come into Agent Builder and they're like, oh, cool, I'm going to automate this thing. That's not what it's for. It's not for that, at least not yet. But the use case, what you're defining here, spot on. Let's do something that's repeatable and consistent and has an output, and make it easy for me to accomplish this thing over and over and over with minimal effort on my part.
Yeah. So like with this example, I would go do my monthly run of like what's new and next. And then I would go download that document and then I'd go do something with it, right? I'd get it out of the chat and then I'd go put it in like the SharePoint repository with me and my friend Lee. Then we'd start working on it. If I wanted to level that up out of Agent Builder, then I would have it go into Studio. And in Studio, I could have triggers and I could have actions. So the trigger would be automatically run this every, the first or the last Monday of every month, right? Go check the blogs, go do this, put it all into a PowerPoint. The action would be building the PowerPoint and also storing the PowerPoint on a specific SharePoint site and also emailing me and Lee and scheduling a meeting on our calendars, to review it. doing more things in the real world, those actions that stack up would be more of a studio type of thing.
Mhm.
Then we start to get into this weird world right now where we're not quite sure with co-work, right? Because maybe that would be a good co-work task instead. And I would fire up co-work and I would have it go through and do the research and build the deck. One thing that's missing from co-work in its current state, which is in preview, is that action library isn't nearly as big as what you have in Copilot Studio, right? So it can make a PowerPoint, but it's going to store the PowerPoint in its output folder. It's not going to store it in the existing Microsoft Team repository that is with me and Lee and do all that type of stuff. It also has a little bit more permissions control over it, right? So like before it goes and emails Lee a copy of the PowerPoint, it's going to ask me if that's okay first, right? Because it's doing it on my behalf as me. Where Studio, you can have it go a little bit more on auto mode than what you can do with co-work. Mm-hmm. That's something that I've noticed it's a little bit different. So I'm still kind of figuring out myself how to like decide when do I use co-work versus when do I use Studio, other than co-work is the new thing and I like it and I'm enjoying it and I'm just naturally gravitating towards that. For Studio, when you're like in build it once for the team world, I feel like agents still have a very important role because you're packaging it up as like a solution for people to go use, rather than co-work is a little bit more individualized and it's a little bit more like nuanced than that. So,
as we're landing this plane, can you bring my screen back up? I want to give a big teaser to everyone.
There you go.
So I actually have co-work up, and a lot of what we talked about today, I've been building a presentation in co-work around that. I took all of those tips and tricks in the daily decision tree and told it, we are going to create a presentation around this. We're going to develop an outline. We're going to research, validate, fact check the content. We're going to make sure that each slide features a single image with the bullet points to support the content. We're going to make sure the speaker notes has links to official Microsoft references for that. We're going to use key principles of McKinsey consulting presentations to keep the images and the order intact. And as we're looking at this, it has its chat interface and its conversation, but it has output folders that exist in the cloud, OneDrive, SharePoint. It has reference material. That's the knowledge sources that it's reasoning over in addition to its AI and its training data and more. And it also has skills and plugins which allow it to do different tasks with very specific capabilities. And this is something John and I are really excited to talk about. It's just in preview. It's in Frontier now. We hope to be able to talk about it and do a whole episode of co-work. But as we've been like waiting on it to kind of go general availability, and we don't know when that's going to be, the features and the capabilities keep changing and they keep adding new stuff to it. It's just mind blowing what it's capable of. We've built some really cool content with co-work, and it's really all in the skills that you give it, and the prompt engineering that you give it. And this is a very basic prompt. You can be very, very detailed with this and do some really cool things. We're really looking forward to giving you a whole episode on co-work here in the near future. So stay tuned.
Yeah. I'm developing like I'm developing like a 4-hour workshop about co-work because I feel like it's such a step change. It's going to be modularized and really need to like spend a lot of time with it. But hopefully, you know, as we show that last screen there or Andy's screen, hopefully this kind of explains a little bit of like, we've got a huge wide range of tools available to us, from the chat all the way to agents. There is a place for everything. And as you start thinking about what do I want to accomplish? What am I trying to do? Hopefully we've given you a little bit of guidance around, you know, thinking through what you want to get out of your time. I want an artifact, or I want just an answer. And that will lead you down the path of like, choose this or choose that. And maybe, just maybe, you'll end up taking the wrong path a little bit less often, because we take the wrong path way too often, but we are trying to capture where we went wrong so that we can share it with you guys and hopefully save you time. So with that, let us know in the chat what you'd like to know for next time, what we should talk about. Co-work, I don't know if it's going to be mature enough yet or not. We'll see what happens at Build. If any like crazy announcements happen, maybe there'll be something to chat about in late June. But let us know. And thanks for hanging out with us for the last 2 hours. I know, Andy, you've got a meeting to get to. I keep holding you back here.
No worries. This has been a lot of fun, folks. We really appreciate the live commentary, the questions, and the answers. Keep it coming either through LinkedIn or on YouTube. Stick around for the June episode. Hopefully we're going to have something cool that we can talk about. I'm going to put a wink on that one. But let us know, like John said, what you're interested in. And with that, folks, it's been fun, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.